What is the parenting blueprint in Parenting by Design? Simply put, it's an approach that focuses on understanding the distinct personalities within your family and using that knowledge to meet the social emotional needs of our children to reduce the stress and conflict and create better relationships in the home. One of the most effective tools we use is the DISC model of human behavior. Now, the DISC model breaks down human behavior into four primary styles: dominant, inspiring, supportive, and cautious. These four traits blend together to determine our unique personalities. Welcome to Real Talk with the Parenting Blueprint Coaches, where we discuss all aspects of parenting using the foundation of understanding personality dynamics to raise independent, responsible, and resilient children. My name is Karen Wagner, founder of Teaching Our Youth and the Parenting Blueprint. Let's dig right in with today's topic and have some real talk with the Parenting Blueprint Coaches. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Real Talk with the Parenting Blueprint Coaches. I'm Karen Wagner, and today we're going to dive into the fascinating world of parenting by design. We believe that understanding personalities is the cornerstone to effective parenting, and we're excited to explore this with you. Don't forget to click the subscribe button so you won't miss another episode of Real Talk with the Parenting Blueprint Coaches. So joining me today are three incredible parenting blueprint coaches. First, we have Mindy Green, a parenting expert in neuroscience. Next, we have Roseanne Delaney, who specializes in family trauma and addiction. And we also have Janet Krebs, who takes parent leadership approach. I want to welcome you ladies to the podcast today. So let's start with the basics. What is the parenting blueprint in Parenting by Design? Simply put, it's an approach that focuses on understanding the distinct personalities within your family and using that knowledge to meet the social emotional needs of our children to reduce the stress and conflict and create better relationships in the home. One of the most effective tools we use is the DISC model of human behavior. Now, the DISC model breaks down human behavior into four primary styles: dominant, inspiring, supportive, and cautious. These four traits blend together to determine our unique personalities. See, each of us, including our kids, are wired from birth with our unique personality traits, and each of those traits have internal emotional needs. When these needs are not met, we typically experience out of control behaviors, and we tend to address that surface behavior. But if we don't get to the root, usually an unmet emotional need, that behavior will continue or escalate. So, Mindy, would you give us a brief overview of what the DISC model is and why it's so powerful in the context of parenting?
Sure. Yeah. I think that's a great question because I know that for parents, a lot of times what we do is we're looking for some way to understand our kids, right? And so I think that what you've shared it gives a bit of perspective on that. But what I love about the DISC model is that it's a framework for understanding those different personality types. And what's great about it is there are only four different ones that you have to understand. You have the D, which is dominant. Those dominant individuals they're direct, decisive, driven. These are those strong-willed kids that we often have and we might butt heads with, right? And then we have the inspiring type, that I. These are the social, enthusiastic, energetic, and sometimes impulsive people. And I have one of those in my home. We have the supportive type, and those are patient, calm, dependable. They're all about, can't we just get along? They're all about their people. And finally, we have the cautious individuals. These are the analytical, detail-oriented, and cautious types. So they want to process things. They're just the facts, ma'am. They want to have the facts so that they can then decide what they're going to do next. And when we can understand these traits, these individual personality traits, as parents, we can tailor our approach to meet the unique needs of each of our family members.
That is wonderful. And it's so true. We are all experiencing the different personality dynamics in our family, but sometimes we can't always put our finger on what's actually happening, why children who are born out of the same gene pool and being parented in the same household can have such different responses. So I want to dive a little deeper into each of the personality styles, and starting with the dominant style. Mindy, I know you parented a dominant child. So can you tell us a little bit more about the dominant traits that you experience and how parents can effectively connect and guide their dominant children?
Well, I am going to say yes. My oldest daughter is a dominant style. And so all of the things all those descriptors that I just said are very much her. And actually today is her birthday. And so I share that because, it's a celebration of who she is, right? And we've had from the very beginning, and it wasn't when she was just a teenager, we were seeing, these very, very opinionated and very strong willed and very much wanting things to go her way. When she was young, when she was 3 or 4 years old, and she knew exactly what she wanted to wear and how she wanted to wear it, and if she wanted to wear it every day, that's what she was going to do. And so we would have these opportunities to have conversations, but I needed to know how to be able to approach her. And I didn't always know how to do that. And so what would happen is I would become frustrated as the mother. And I'm like, you just need to do as I'm telling you right now, because I felt like I had to explain myself to her. But what she wanted to know is a really good reason why she should do what I wanted her to do. And so we would get into these arguments, which grew as she got older. And it was very difficult to know. I didn't have this information at the time. I just knew that I had a strong willed child and I wasn't sure how to approach it. I'm thankful now to have this information that I help other parents with, because it then puts into perspective some of the situations that I was finding myself in as a new mom, a young mom, a mom of teens. It's helpful to know that, she wanted to feel like she had some say in what was happening in her life. And looking back on that, that makes total sense. I mean, I do too, right? But the way that she expressed that sometimes was getting in my face. It was, arguing with me over what was seemingly the smallest thing, but it meant so much to her. And I'm like, gosh, let's just move on from that. And, what I was doing, and I didn't realize it, I was dismissing her, her need to feel that control, feel like she was having a say in what was going on.
So true. So true. The internal emotional needs of the dominant personality are challenge, choice, and control. And if they're not being challenged, they're going to become a challenge. And if they don't have choices and feel as though they have a level of control, is when we experience defiance. They're going to do what they want, exactly what you said. And we tend to want to address that defiance. But if we don't adapt our interactions to offer her choices within your boundaries, so she feels a level of control, that defiance will continue or escalate because the child's needs are still not being met. There are many parents that I'm sure may be listening to this podcast and been following this for a while who have those strong-willed dominant children. And as you said, Mindy, it's the power struggle over and over again. So these are great insights. So thanks for sharing. Now let's move on to the inspiring style. Now, Roseanne, I know you are personally very high in the inspiring style, but you also have some children, grandchildren, we'll say, as our families are growing. But how can parents best support and nurture the inspiring child?
You are right. I am a high I, and fun is what I seek, and attention is what I seek. And, I look back, and because I'm an I, I'm going to turn it back on me. I look back to my childhood, and if I was bored in school, I would talk to my neighbor, or I would get up and I would go somewhere else and maybe try to pull something out of like a center area and do something different. And oftentimes the report my parents would get from my teachers is, oh my gosh, she just won't shut up. And she is just so bossy, is kind of the tag that they would stick on me. And now that I have raised 4 kids and have 3 grandkids, it's really fun to watch these new emerging people and start to see what their personality blend is. And I have a cute little granddaughter who's 4. And I also have another one who's extremely cute as well, who's 6. And we were playing a game together. The game was starting to get a little boring for the 4-year-old. And the first thing she tried to do was like, well, let's change the rules to make it a little more interesting for myself. And the 6-year-old didn't like that. And so there was a little bickering back and forth. And then on Pandora, which was playing in the background, thank you, Disney radio, a song came on that sparked the 4-year-old's interest, and up she was away from the game, and she was singing and dancing, almost like, well, the game's not fun anymore. So look at me over here. And she grabbed a broom and she used it for a microphone and she was shaking her hips. And I look back to when I was a young mom, or even when I was a young girl myself, and how easy it can be when you don't understand the inspiring personality and that they mean no malice or to cause problems. They're just looking to have fun and they just want to be seen and congratulated and feel special all of the time to everyone, even if maybe in another person's perspective, from their own personality or the way they view the world, it's rude or an inconvenience or maybe even bossy.
There's a lot of energy that comes with the inspiring style. They are fast-paced, people-oriented. They can be easily distracted by just about anything. And the internal emotional needs of that inspiring style are recognition, approval, and popularity. And when those internal emotional needs are not being met, we can experience some what I call illogical behavior. They just kind of act out to get the attention. So they can be attention seekers if we are not meeting these needs on a regular basis through our daily interactions. And so once we know this in advance, because it can be very frustrating to have an illogical meltdown anywhere when you're working with an inspiring child, but if we are meeting those needs on a regular basis, we're less apt to experience that because they feel as though those needs are being met. If not, we will experience illogical behavior. And then as parents, we're trying to get that under control, but not realizing that we need to be meeting those needs. And usually when we're trying to address illogical behavior at that point, we're not meeting emotional needs anymore. We're just trying to contain the meltdown and try and get everything back on track again. So if you understand this in advance and you're able to meet these on a daily basis, we're less apt to experience those out of control behaviors. Great analogy and story with that. Thanks for sharing that, Roseanne. So I also want to share with you right now about the supported child. And I'm going to kind of take the wheel on this one because as a dominant mom, I have a lot of dominant traits. Out of the 7 kids, because I'm a mom and a stepmom to 7, all but 1 have supportive traits. And without going through the whole model right now, that's my polar opposite. So I am parenting polar opposite children. Now, they are kind, they are empathetic, they're kind of like the glue that holds the family together, but they can also be sensitive, very sensitive, and struggle being indecisive. They also tend to be the people pleasers, just trying to make sure that, everybody's happy and serving and serving and serving. So if you are parenting a supportive personality style, they are not necessarily the attention seekers. They're very quiet, they're more reserved, but they still have emotional needs. And I tend to feel as though the supportive child becomes the invisible child. Why? Because they're not exhibiting outward huge behaviors. We need to really provide a stable and loving environment in which they feel valued and appreciated for who they are. And as a dominant mom, I really struggled with meeting those sensitive needs because I am more of the Nike swish mom, just do it mom. Okay. I didn't have the patience. I didn't feel as though I wanted to take the time to explain everything, just as Mindy was sharing. And so it just didn't come naturally to me. And as a dominant mom who's a quick decision maker, I got really frustrated with the indecisiveness that my kids had, which then caused more stress and anxiety within my kids because of the pressure I was putting on them. So once I understood how my kids were wired and what the needs were of the supportive child, which are appreciation, security, and affirmation, I could adapt my interactions and provide that on a daily basis. So I wasn't getting as much shut down and indecisiveness because we could have more communication and dialogue. See, when I came on strong to my kids, and I did, they would give me an answer just to please me, but it really wasn't a collaborative approach. They were just telling me what they thought I wanted to hear. And then one of 2 things happened. Either nothing happened, okay, or they did it because they felt that would please me, but not necessarily please them. So can you see the destruction that can happen in a relationship because that child is still not feeling valued and understood for who they are? Once I began adapting my interactions, having more patience, providing more information, giving them time to process and calming my tone and body language, it became a much more beautiful relationship rather than me coming in guns a-blazing. This is what we need to do, dictatorial, telling them what to do and causing them to just get a little off on their rocker to get through the stress that I was providing just to please me. So the last thing I want to do is explore the cautious traits. And Janet, if you would take the wheel on this one, would you be willing to share what strategies work best with parenting that cautious analytical child?
Yes. And before I answer that question directly, for anybody that is listening and are viewing, by now you're probably already trying to figure out where you are, where your kids are, where students, kids that you tutor, grandchildren, whomever these younger people are in your world, you're trying to put them in a box. And so I'm just going to invite you all to at least understand that you're not going to be just one. Everybody's got a mix of all of the different personality styles. It's just a matter of which ones might have more dominance, not the D in dominant for DISC, but just a more presence numerically or statistically. So if you can't figure out which one you are, it's because you're probably just not one. So for C, the cautious child, these are your kids that need, or parents, this is a style that needs more information. These are not going to be your spontaneous people. These are not going to be the ones that are just going to like, oh, let's just go. It's like, why are we doing? When are we going? What do we need? Blah, blah, blah. They're going to be probably your planners. They're going to be your routines. And there's probably a little bit of cautious in all of us parents because routines and more information is usually pretty helpful as a parent. But for kids that are cautious, they're going to need that up front before they are introduced, invited, or excited about the activity that you're trying to engage them in. Perhaps even they're going to be your detail people, just like, this is what we're going to the movies. Well, which movie? We're going to see Inside Out 2. Well, why? Because I think it will be fun. Well, what's it about? Like, they're going to want to know all the information beforehand. And when they are decision makers, both parents and children, these are your process people. Mm-hmm. So they're not going to be this, like Roseanne will be like right up front. She don't need any information. She's right out the gate and she'll figure it out as she goes. But the processors, the cautious kids, they're going to need a minute. And so I think that is a key indicator of a cautious child, your processors. And that's how we can respect them, both as parents and kids. Parents, we can just hide in our bedrooms, or we can cook a meal and just like, I will give you a decision over dinner so that they're thinking about it. But the kids, they're going to need some time to just kind of process and understand, because they're not going to be on board with just about anything until their understanding is significant enough for them to feel comfortable. So if there's a synonym for cautious, I use comfortable. They have to be comfortable with the situation, with the invitation, with the change of plans before they can be on board. Now,
so true.
I may not have answered the question. So tell me if I did or didn't answer the question. I probably did in a roundabout way.
No, that was a perfect analogy of coming from both the parent perspective as well as the child. So the internal emotional needs of that cautious style are quality answers, value, and excellence. And I say quality answers because if it's not a good answer, they're going to ask more questions. They are the why kids. They want the details and the information. Some of the other personalities are quick decision makers. They just want to move forward. The inspiring style, they're like excited about, they're just doing anything anyway. The supportive style will just go with the flow, but the cautious personality needs more information. When you recognize that about your child, and I had to learn, because that is my absolute lowest style, is to be less offended by all the questions questions. I would be like, oh my gosh, you're killing me, with all the questions. But when I would approach it that way, what I was telling him was that it wasn't important to meet those emotional needs. Just do what I tell you to do. So I needed to take the time. And if I didn't have the answers, sometimes with my kids, I'm like, that's a great question. Never thought about it. Let me get back to you on it. Not dismiss it, but lean into that. And so it is so important to understand the 4 styles, because as we approach the parenting blueprint and parenting by design, there's 3 pillars of the framework that I want you to consider. And the first is being aware of the personalities, yours and your child's, because if you are parenting an opposite style, you can already sense that that's where some frustration and friction will be. So become aware of the differences in your personality. The second pillar of the framework is be able to adapt your interactions daily to meet those social emotional needs. Because as I said, each of those needs, if not being met, we will start to experience what I call the danger zone, out of control, disruptive behaviors that we are then dealing with on the surface because we're not meeting the internal needs. And the third part of the framework is adapt our interactions and apply the right strategies so we are meeting those needs on a regular basis and not experiencing those disruptive behaviors on a daily basis. So as coaches, and now you've been working with this philosophy. Would you be willing to share real quickly, how this philosophy has impacted some of your clients in transitioning their parenting approach? So if you'd be willing to share an example or a case study of a parenting win of a client that came in with some incredible frustration, but how they were able to adapt and where they are today with their parenting. Roseanne, let's start with you.
Sure. Oh, goodness. So many to choose from because we have had so much success with the parenting blueprint and parent by design within our business. But I am thinking right now of one of my clients. He just wants to have choice. He's a high D, wants to have choice in all of the things that he does, whether it's in the lessons that he takes, the classes that he takes at school, the activities that he wants to do. He wants to have choice. And his mom is also a high D, and she wants to have choice as well. And therefore, when mom decided that piano lessons were something her children were going to do, and he did not want to do piano lessons, but there was no discussion about it, it caused a lot of conflict in their relationship. And it took us quite a while of working together to where we could get mom to understand that her relationship with her son is much more important than piano lessons, and that it was okay to release some of her choice and control and allow him some of his own choice and control. And so not only when we're opposites, like you were talking about with your own children, where you're a high D, and then you have some that are cautious, which are the polar opposites of each other, when you're both looking at life through the same lenses, and you have your own wants and needs, and they have the same types of wants and needs, there can be that conflict and clash as well. Being able to understand that, oh, he just wants what I want. He just wants it different than what I want. Mm-hmm. And being able to take a look at that and apply some different strategies made a huge difference in their relationship. And no, he is not taking piano lessons anymore.
That is so true. When you're parenting a polar opposite, with which many of the clients I work with are polar opposites, but I've also had that experience even personally with the dominant style, especially, is that strive for control. So I think I want to control. I needed to learn to offer choices within my boundaries. So he felt as though he had a level of control. But there are some dominant parents, as you were sharing, Roseanne, that aren't willing to relinquish control because they think they know what's best for their child. And as parents, I think we do that. But when you are parenting a dominant child, you will end up in conflict over every little thing all day long if you're not willing to, number one, pick your battles, what hill you're willing to die on, okay? And then offering child choices within your boundaries. So if it wasn't piano lessons, is there something else that he wanted to do? And can we support that? Sometimes it is hard for parents to relinquish or let go of that control. So great testimony in not just the opposite styles, but especially similar styles when it comes to the dominant. So Mindy, do you have a quick example of a parenting win, personally or
I do.
professionally?
Yes, I do have one. And this actually wasn't with a client. It was at a birthday party that I went to at my neighbor's house. I had gone with my youngest grandson, who is also 6 and very adorable. And one of the things that I was noticing as I was sitting there, and somehow I end up always sitting on the floor with the kids, and so that gives me a great perspective on what's happening with different people. And so there was one mom who I'd had a conversation with, and she was really frustrated with her son because he was clinging to her. So I'm going to say, I don't know that she was necessarily a dominant type or whatever, but she was more outgoing definitely than her son, who, as I was watching him, I could see he was very cautious. So he was, he's slow to warm up and he was trying to become comfortable. And so he was he was the observer, and he's like looking around, he's watching, he's taking in information. And, one of the things that she was saying as she was talking to him, because I could see her frustration coming out, was, she's like, he's not at all like his sister. She's never met a stranger. She's just out, as soon as we go in, I don't even see her until the end, and so she's standing there with him as he's clinging to her. And my heart went out to this poor little boy. And I know the mom did not mean to make a comparison, to make him feel bad. I think she was just trying to figure out how to make him more comfortable. And the way that she was going about it was something that, in a way that was actually making him feel worse, because I could see him shrinking and getting smaller and smaller in a situation where he was already not feeling himself. And so one of the things that I did is we were standing there talking later, and he was starting to slowly move a little bit away from her. I was like, just talking about the different personalities. And this is where this information is so helpful, even in our everyday interactions. It's not just with clients or within our own families, but I was able to give her a little bit of insight into what I was seeing. And she's like, and she pulled me aside before I left later on. And she said, that was really helpful. And it just brought her awareness up to what she can do to help her son. And just, for her to be accepting that this is who he is, and that there are also some downsides to her daughter, because she's concerned. She was concerned, and she had voices. She's like, I don't know if she's going to go off with someone, and leave, and I'm not going to know.
No.
So it's like we had a good laugh about that. And so that's where I would just encourage, when you have this information, that you can see it, in all interactions, not just in your own family or if you're working with clients, but, out in the world. It's practical, easy to understand and apply information.
Absolutely. Great story. And it's so true. The cautious children will be a little clingy until they feel as though they can go. But if you're a parent, it's like, go, 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 because I want to socialize and I want to talk, and you're sitting on my lap and you're glued to me, then how is it making that child feel when they're not quite ready? So how can we set them up to be comfortable and then let them go without them feeling bad that they're kind of Velcroed to us for a little while? So great example, great example. So Janet, come on in and share with us some of your observations and how you've seen this.
Mindy gave me the perfect segue, because DISC within the parenting blueprint, or Parent by Design, is a tool. And again, here I go with, if you are listening and you're like, well, I only know DISC from, a job that I had 10 years ago or 5 years ago. I had to do the DISC assessment as part of my, onboarding with an organization. DISC has been an onboarding corporate tool for I don't know how many years, but it's probably one of the the most original personality assessments that corporate America has used. Or the world of work. It's probably a more accurate statement. And so the fact that you have redone it, realigned it, so it is now a tool that families can use, is genius. And so my personal experience is that when sharing with families, people like Mindy at a birthday party, or, in just talking with people like interested in what it is that you do professionally. When you mention DISC, it's an automatic, oh, I know what that is, but I had to, and then they have their own experience with it, probably from a professional setting. How surprised are they to learn that it has been modified and realigned so that it now becomes a tool for families to use to better understand personalities and behavior and, natural inclinations, both for everybody involved. Now people have, like, we learn from experience. So a lot of people have experience, or at least they've heard of DISC. So it's a very easy segue into, oh, I understand what you do, because parent coaching can be a little obscure, and probably the one thing that people don't talk about very often, because then they have to admit that they don't have all the answers, right? And that's hard for a lot of people. And so we come in with, hey, it's okay to not have all the answers. And oh, by the way, we're not just fabricating or speculating about what would work. We actually have tools, proven tools, that will help you anchor some of the information that you need to make closer ties, have better communication. That list of what you get from unifying a family with the assistance of DISC is limitless.
That was wonderful. And it's so true. And Janet, I was introduced to the DISC model in a professional setting. And
Yeah.
as I sat there and listened to the overview of personalities in a business setting, all I could think about was how I was struggling as a parent, and how this just kind of like took the blinders off, that I could clearly see why. I knew Kyle was being so defiant all the time, and I kept trying to get him to comply, but not realizing that the clash between my parenting style and his personality was what was causing the problem. It was me. And you're right. As parents, I think we're led to believe that when we have children, we will know how to raise them. And we need to put that myth to rest, that it is not a one size fits all approach. And the family and the personality dynamics is huge tool of understanding, that we are less offended by the behavior when we understand the why. And as parents go through this, as you were talking about with the assessments, and we see the personality assessments, it's like, there's nothing wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with my child. We just see life through a different lens. And so when parents see that, we're able to reduce our own stress and anxiety, that we're not truly failing. We just need different strategies to be able to connect with our kids. It is a wonderful tool of understanding. I've been sharing this for 20 years now, and it really does help people understand that it's not right or wrong. It's just different. How can we value and appreciate the diversity that we have in our kids? And if you have more than one child, you know what I'm talking about. They are just different. They came out of the same gene pool. I'm parenting them in the same home. But why is it that they will act and respond in different ways to the same situation? That was confusing to me. I knew they were different, but I couldn't put my finger on it until I was introduced to this. And the DISC model is widely used in the corporate setting. And I spent 20 years kind of zeroing in on how do we apply this information to the adult-child relationship, whether it's parenting, whether it's classroom management, teaching and learning styles. It is a powerful tool that will reduce the stress, increase the productivity, and preserve the relationships that we desire, and create the legacy that we want with our kids. So I am just so excited to have everybody here. I kind of want to wrap up with some key points. The DISC model of human behavior and creating a parenting blueprint is tailoring an approach to a family's unique dynamics that can truly, I believe this, enhance your parenting journey. And by recognizing and adapting, as I talked about before, becoming aware, adapt, apply, you can reduce the stress and conflict in your relationships. You will have stronger connections and get back to enjoy parenting. I mean, we want to enjoy our kids. Nobody wants to go to bed like I was at night, feeling as though another day that I felt as though I was failing my kids. It was like parenting Groundhog Day. I was going to get up and say, tomorrow's going to be another day, only to find that I was tripping over the same things. So ladies, I want to thank you for sharing your insights and experiences. And don't forget to subscribe to Real Talk with the Parenting Blueprint coaches. And we look forward to seeing you on our next episode. And we are going to be diving deeper into various parenting situations and how we can have solutions by using this tool of understanding. Until then, keep embracing that journey as we learn to parent by design. We'll see you next time.